During the climactic moments of the Battle of Endor, an elite team of stormtroopers named Inferno Squad are recruited to carry out the Emperor's final wishes in a top-secret mission. But when those very orders endanger innocent Imperial lives, Commander Iden Versio and Del Meeko take a stand, defecting to what remains of the Rebel Alliance and help them in building a new resistance against the rising First Order. I'm Dylan from the PopCulturists for the PopCorn podcast, and this is our review of the Star Wars Battlefront 2 campaign. Star Wars video games have produced some of the most memorable narratives outside of the movies. I loved Shadows of the Empire and The Force Unleashed. Both were new stories with sets of interesting and conflicted new characters woven in between the existing movies and, on occasion, crossing paths with events and characters audiences have come to know and love. LucasArts have always pushed boundaries to blur the line between film and game by using orchestral scores, cinematic lighting and camera techniques, professional voice acting, and photorealistic locations and characters, and that tradition continues here. But what made this particular game such a compelling topic of discussion was that every comic, novel, toy, and of course video game released since the merger of Disney and Lucasfilm has been confirmed as official canon, which meant that Battlefront 2 would tell a story that has an impact on the overall narrative of the Star Wars saga as much as episodes 7, 8, or 9, and could potentially provide some official hints as to what's to come. The story also takes place over 30 years, bridging the period from the Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens, and is for the most part told through the perspective of Iden Versio, commander of Inferno Squad, and daughter to Garrick Versio, high-ranking admiral of the Star Destroyer Eviscerator. It's good to see Iden continuing the new tradition of strong female leads in the Star Wars universe, right alongside Rey in The Force Awakens and Jyn Erso in Rogue One. She is portrayed through motion capture by actress Janina Gavankar and has a cold and calculated spirit of a warrior that slowly thaws as she learns to think for herself outside the chokehold of the oppressing and narrow-minded thinking of the Empire. The makers of the game wanted to explore the Imperial perspective of the Star Wars universe, which is something you never really got to understand. Who are they as a people? How does the organization really work? And here it provides for a really interesting insight into the mindset of the Empire and what drives their hatred against the Rebel Alliance. They believe discipline and order provides a level of safety and peace to the galaxy, yet to achieve that, it is governed under a rule of fear. The Alliance, on the other hand, supposedly rebel against those ideals, driven by hatred as they carry out terror attacks against the stability of the Empire. The game presents three clearly defined characters amid that Imperial mindset. Iden, who was raised to be an Imperial officer since childhood, is loyal and is defined by having clear orders to follow. Del Meeko is less a soldier and more of an engineer at heart, who has seen more of the universe but has grown up hearing the propaganda of the Emperor that the Jedi are something to be feared, though with his worldliness he doesn't have as much of a narrow-minded view as the others. And finally there's Gideon Hask, who has an unwavering loyalty to the Empire, fully believing power is the only path to peace, and order cannot exist until the Empire brings submission to the galaxy by cleansing it of those who don't follow their beliefs. It was really fascinating to see how cocky and overconfident the Empire are, even when the second Death Star blows up before their eyes. They barely even bat an eyelid and continue on their mission. Their blind confidence in the power of the Empire, its ideals, and its unmatched firepower is frightening. When Operation Cinder, the plan to use geothermal satellites to alter the weather conditions of planets purely to assert dominance of the Empire, reaches her homeworld, she refuses to stand by and watch the destruction of innocent lives, loyal to the Empire. At first she's not interested in joining the Rebel Alliance, but by slowly working alongside them in encounters with key figures in the existing Star Wars universe, she begins to see the value and hope they provide. I really like the way characters like Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, or even Lando Calrissian made an impact on them either directly or indirectly, and it's something I wish the Star Wars standalone movies would take on. I'd much rather see characters not in the established universe having the occasional crossover with other people we know of, rather than the familiar characters getting solo stories. At first I was apprehensive about Rogue One, but by the end it managed to introduce an entire new group of characters, made you care for them, and told a self-contained story that needed no further sequels, yet still contributed to the Star Wars saga as a whole. I had always assumed, like most fans I imagine, that when Return of the Jedi ended, balance had been returned to the universe and everyone was at peace again. Without the Emperor, I figured there would be no Empire, that they would just surrender and dissipate, but maybe one day there would be a time when a new threat arose. But, as The Force Awakens showed us, the war never really ended, it just took on a new form. I was also surprised that the game spanned 30 years all the way up until the playable Battle of Jakku. The huge advantage video games have in filling these gaps is that they can have digital versions of characters voiced by sound-alikes or even the original actors, but have them played at any age they need them to be so you can tell stories throughout any period now. Brief glimpses into the life of a bearded Han Solo make me long for what a new Star Wars trilogy in the 1990s would have been like, while the stars were still relatively in their prime. I really wish they'd taken a few years break and then returned to make a new movie every 3 years. I can only imagine what it would be like to have a Star Wars movie released in 1987, 1990 and 1993. I must say though that there are advantages and disadvantages to this being a playable narrative. At times you may go off the set path and get the "you're leaving the mission battleground" warning, and it becomes a constant reminder that you're on a single map and this is a multiplayer shooter, not a proper single player campaign, which is to be expected considering that it is that style of game first and foremost. But if you're a Star Wars fan and are looking for an interesting story to whet your appetite before The Last Jedi arrives, then I recommend at least playing the game for its story mode alone. Battlefront 2 does well to honour the themes of Star Wars, the conflict of good and evil in all of us, and the legacy of family and duty. There's also some new elements the game brings to the Star Wars universe, including the Corvus, Inferno Squad starship and base of operations, somewhere between a fighter ship and a Star Destroyer. Iden has a droid that folds up in her backpack that assists her in hacking, similar to a mini version of an Imperial probe droid. And then there's Shrev, an alien rebel with a sarcastic streak. He reminds me a lot of K2SO, with a disconnect to human social cues, bringing some laughs and making him an endearing character very quickly. Regardless of all the controversies of in-game purchases that have overshadowed the multiplayer mode, the story mode is a compelling few hours. Whether it's worth the price of an entire game just to experience alone, I can't say. As a game at only 13 missions, it does fall short, only taking around 4 hours to complete. But as a 4-hour movie, it does a good job, and would be worth a ticket admission price. You could watch the cutscenes alone to get the gist, but there is so much pivotal dialogue throughout the gameplay that you might not get the full story. After all, it is designed to be an immersive experience played, not watched. During a mission to destroy one of the Emperor's classified observatories, containing dangerous artifacts that the Empire believes the rebels could potentially use against them, Del is separated from his squad and trapped in a cave. Luke Skywalker, who has also been drawn to this planet, but by the call of the Force, frees Del, and the two work together to reach the storage stronghold. Luke's interaction with Del was really nice. Sensing the conflict inside him, it's a defining moment for him to see what the Jedi are really like, and Luke's advice to do what he feels is right is subtly played down. Luke isn't recruiting or pushing his agenda, but just passing through and offering a suggestion. Just before blowing the site, he says he won't stand in his way, but hasn't the Empire done enough to damage innocent worlds already? Really starting the chain reaction of his decision to turn away from the Empire. Amongst the entire room of antiquities and containers though, Luke is drawn to a compass which Del lets him keep. Whether this is just a way of finding the island Luke eventually ended up on, or something that plays a deeper role in future movies, is something I really look forward to seeing, as it is really heavily focused on. As I mentioned before, the game culminates in the Battle of Jakku, only alluded to in Episode 7, and used as a playable level in the first Battlefront to coincide with the release of the same movie. But what's really interesting is after the battle is over and the sandy landscape is left covered in the same debris shown to be lived in by Rey in The Force Awakens, the two main characters, Iden and Del, strike up a romance for the first time on the very same planet. Coincidence? Perhaps? However, in the game's epilogue, set decades later, Kylo Ren tracks down Del far away from Jakku back on Pilio, the planet where he first met Luke, and is Force interrogated for information leading to finding the map that was the driving MacGuffin during the start of The Force Awakens. If that didn't allude enough, Haas catches up with Del too, and informs him that if he doesn't comply, his daughter's life could be at risk, mocking him for retiring to fatherhood. A daughter left on Jakku? Could Rey be the daughter of Iden and Del? It definitely feels like an intentional point to stress in the story, but I don't think such an anticipated answer would be revealed in a game not everyone would know of, let alone play, but it's a nice little tease. Hopefully when The Last Jedi is released shortly, we'll all find out. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by leaving a like or a comment, and subscribe so we can continue making videos like this for you in the future.